All right, so today we're going to be talking about the first lesson plan. So for those of you that attended the session today in my classroom, some of this is repeated. For those of you that weren't able to make it and just want a little bit more additional support, that's what this is for. So let's get into it. First thing that I recommend that you do is set up your classroom day one. So have the name tents, have your seating chart ready to go. On each desk, you should have a pen, a planner, their t-shirt, as well as one of those markers, like a days of the week markers for the planner. The ID sheet that you see in there, don't give that to them until the end of the lesson, but that's what your classroom should look like. Slide deck up. I always think it's nice to fist bump them, greet them by hand, shake their hand if they're comfortable, say hello, greet them by, what's your name? Okay, you're over here. Just give them that welcoming spirit. That's important for a first day of class, and really show them that you want to get to know them and learn from them. Once we get there, so you'll see that's all kind of in the facilitator action items. It might be silent while you're taking attendance on Power School. Not a big deal. Ask for names, ask for correct pronunciation, and just really guide them to this yellow box. This is called a bell ringer, a warm up. Many people have different names for the same thing. It's the expectation that what happens when you get into class is you find your seat, you set up, and you start getting into it, because we want to maximize class time. And many of your teachers do that, is they maximize their class time by having something like a warm up or bell ringer. So just remind them to do that. Unfortunately, the CY1 planner, the numbers are off. So tell them to go to CY1 Day One, and it's right next to the clock. It's in the first part of the planner. Once we do that, we want to remind them of this idea of today we are going to be open to growth. And we have these things called grad values. That's what we expect a graduate to become at graduation. And we want our students to know these standards now before they even enter their freshman year, so they know kind of what they're working towards. And open and growth is important for a first year's experience, because you need to be open to changes, to challenges. And this is what we do here at Loyola, but also in the Cub Year One experience. Pray with them. And before you pray with them, kind of briefly go over the sushi pay. Practice saying Ignatius of Loyola, pray for us. It's always a really fun way of getting the kids into it. I always like to be like, oh, I couldn't hear you. Let's try that again. Saying Ignatius of Loyola, and then they go, pray for us. And, it's great because you're getting that sort of energy, that animation early. Go over the agenda briefly. Hey, here's what we're going to do today. You're going to notice we're going to do a few activities, and then we're going to go over some of the expectations, and then we're out of here. You're going to find that these 75 minutes are going to go by quickly. So let's get into it, right? First thing you want to do is a name picnic. I loved a conversation that I had with Jerry Fermento today, which just like, well, I don't really want to call it a name picnic. I want to be like, this is a foodie experience. Perfect. Call it that. And the reason why that's great is because Jerry is tailoring the lesson to who he is as a teacher. Do the same thing for yourselves, right? This activity I love. And it's really helpful if you get in a circular formation so everybody sees everybody, that you model it with either fake names. So I could use this GIF and go with, hi, my first name is Caitlin, and I'm bringing kimchi. And then Shaggy's going to go and he's going to say, my name is Shaggy, and I'm bringing sandwiches. And this is Caitlin, and she's bringing kimchi. And here we have Scooby, and Scooby's bringing salad. Shaggy's bringing sandwiches, and Caitlin's bringing kimchi. We want the students to understand, oh, like that's how the activity goes. I also think it's really helpful to say something like, hey, any volunteers to go first before you explain the activity, kind of figure out who is that leader in the class. That's really nice to know early on. And then they get to go first, and they don't have to memorize all the names. That's your job. So you'll notice I really encourage that you let the students know, hey, if your memorization isn't your thing, you can take notes. You can ask for help from your fellow classmates. Everybody should be paying attention, even if you go first. And also model going last for them. So you're going to do all of their names, and you might make mistakes, and that's okay. We want to normalize mistake making. Once we know everyone's names, go ahead and say, you know what, let's go ahead and take a seat. And you'll notice we're on that CY1 Day One page. Let's go to that other side, the left side, where it says clock partners. And when we do clock partners, it can be a little chaotic just for the facilitator to know. helpful to explain the activity. So you'll notice you have a clock, it has blanks on it, and you're trying to look for a new name to go for each hour. But you can't just write down a bunch of names. You have to match up with somebody. So if I have my clock and you have your clock, and I go up to Jerry from Mento and I go, hey, is your 1 o'clock available? If he says yes, we're going to switch planners. I'm going to write my name clearly, and I'm going to write my phone number. You might be asking, well, why phone numbers? Well, we want them to be able to call and contact a peer if they don't understand something before maybe they come and advocate for themselves with the teacher. Let's say that Jerry did already have a 1 o'clock partner with Natasha Hamlin. Then I'm going to say, okay, Jerry, well, if 1 o'clock's not available, I do have a 7 o'clock. Does that work for you? And we do that until we find an availability, right? All 12 spots ideally should be filled. I would time this activity, we want to go quickly through this. And if a kid's like, oh, I have a blank here, like anybody have any blanks? It's all good. If you have something left blank, if I ask for an 8 o'clock partner and you don't have one, you're going to get with whoever doesn't have a partner. So doesn't have to be too crazy. Then we get into the dyads. And I like to start this activity first by going over what does it mean to be an active listener. You'll notice that they'll be like, oh, we're supposed to sit with our 3 o'clock partners. You can do that either prior or after. So after this clock activity, my segue could be, okay, y'all, let's go ahead and sit with our 3 o'clock partners. That's one way that I could do this, or I can explain the activity and then tell them to group up in 3 o'clocks, right? So either way, whatever works for you as a teacher. I like to go over this idea of what does it mean to be an active listener? What's that look like in person? What's that look like in Zoom? And how is that different from silent listening? I think it's helpful for students to recognize that, like, especially us teachers, we're paying attention to the body language and the messages, the meta messages, as well as like kind of the extra linguistic messages that students are sending us when they're not speaking. And we want our students to start to build awareness around that as well, that my body posture, my eye contact, all indicate to me how I'm engaging with somebody else. And it gives somebody a perspective, or at least a perception of that perspective. Go over that. You don't have to belabor it, but give the students opportunity to speak out. That helps you practice their names some more, get them into it, right? And here's some notes for you. Again, as a teacher, the lesson plan can be as structured or as just kind of like bullet pointy as you'd like. You can go through it. My only ask is that you're not reading it, that you are really living it out, however that looks, right? There's a visual timer here, and that's really helpful for this activity. For some of you, you're going to like that. For others of you, you're going to delete the video and do it on your phone. Like, you need to do what makes sense for you. But essentially what you're going to tell the students is we're going to engage in an activity of active listening in dyads. And you can ask what a dyad is, and it's a pair, partner, group, great. You're in your 3 o'clock partners, you got partner A and you got partner B. Partner A is going to be the speaker, partner B is the listener. Partner A is going to have 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves to their partner, their 3 o'clock partner, and tell their life story in 1.5 minutes. Now, partner B, this is essential. You will need to listen and actively listen at that, because you're going to need that information later. All right. So you're going to have them do this activity. You're going to switch roles, and then you're going to take a group of, see, there's my timer. You're going to take a group of 2 o'clock, or excuse me, a group of 3 o'clock partners. And you're going to say, okay, you're going to pair up with another dyad of 3 o'clock partners to make a quad. So a group of 4. Ready, set, go. I promise you right now, just based off of your rosters, you're not going to have perfect groups of, 4. You might have a group of 5, you might have a group of 3, you might even have a group of 6. Do what makes sense. If you have a group of 6, do 30 seconds. If you have a group of 3, tell them, you're going to have a break, or you can just talk about whatever you want to talk about during the 45 seconds that they're waiting, right? So what's going to happen is, if I'm partner A and my friend Dennis is partner B, I'm going to tell Dennis's story and Dennis is going to tell my story. If we're matched up with Jason and Cedric, Cedric is going to tell Jason's story and Jason is going to tell Cedric's story in 45 seconds. We want them to, practice what is active listening. And then my favorite part about this is debrief it. Like, what was it like telling somebody else's story, right? So they're going to do that for 45 seconds each. give them that oops ouch protocol. Like sometimes people forget and they make up stuff and just say, hey, that's actually not what it was, but it's this. And not, like punking the person, but saying, hey, like this actually was what the detail was, and move on. We don't have to belabor that point. So notice the 45-second timer is a little intense. It might be too intense for this activity. Turn the volume down as I'm doing, and or, use your phone. This is only if you have time. This activity is quad activity. I find that depending on your group size, you may or may not have time for this. I like doing this because it kind of circles back to their bell ringer and it gives them a connection. Oh, there's a reason why I do a bell ringer. It's not just busy work, right? So it's this quote, and I always recommend that you have a student read it. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Go ahead in your quads. You already talked about your life stories. What does this mean? How does this apply to Loyola? And what do you think this has to do with this course that I have yet to explain to you? And that's okay. The mystery of CY1, that is totally fine. We want students to be intrigued and to start to learn, and then we can explain later what it is. Then we debrief. And I just point your attention here to the debriefing questions. Hey, what did you talk about? Why do you think CY1 selected this? We have lots of quotes in the world. Why did CY1 pick this quote for this as a point of discussion? And most importantly, how does that connect to, and what was it like for you to tell other people's stories, right? And it's important because we want to see them understand that we really care about their connection to one another. We care about their connection to their learning, and we want them to understand that habit formation starts with repetition. And they're going to see some repetition in CY1, and that repetition isn't to be dull. It's to practice a skill and to get better at a skill. And then last 10 minutes of the lesson. So at 65 mark, I would recommend you really move on. Hey, this is CY1. Everyone asks us, what is CY1? And this is how we boil it down. It is about understanding who you are, your story, understanding the story of Loyola, and most importantly, finding yourself, finding your place in that greater Loyola narrative. And maybe even rewriting it a little bit. Encourage them. This is to empower you, the first year student. We're creating networks of support with other students, and we're also keeping you in the loop, making sure you know what's up. I would briefly go through this. We're here to prepare you, to ease that transition, and to practice skills that are going to make you successful at Loyola. This course was created by our community. We have a community of folks that provided data and your fellow Cub brothers to help make this course a possibility. And it really is created for you to be successful, but also it's for our adult community, right? They know your first year teachers are going to expect a level of excellence. And so we're preparing you for that experience so that you don't fall short of that. And so that you understand that, we care about you and we're going to hold you accountable. I would personally do this really quickly because it's a lot of information, but say, you know what? We're going to do technology. We're going to learn about what does it mean to be Ignatian or being in a Jesuit school. We have academic skills. We have socio-emotional skills. Sorry, that's my puppy. Socio-emotional skills. We have interpersonal skills. Like these are the things that we care about and we want you to learn in this process. And I love this slide. It's really important. What do we expect of you? We expect that you are prepared. We expect that you're productive. And we expect that you are respectful. So being prepared, productive, and respectful. And why are those the only 3 rules in CY1? Because really that's pretty simple. If you're prepared, you're bringing your planner, your pen, and you're also bringing your computer to class every single day, fully charged. If you're productive, you're using your class time wisely and making sure that you're respecting your teacher, you're respecting your classmates by giving the full 75 minutes what it deserves, right? And then being respectful also includes being respectful to the space, that we're not littering, being respectful to ourselves, that we believe that we're at Loyola for a reason, and we respect that I might know something in this curriculum and I still might have things to learn about that, right? And also respecting the teacher, obviously, and the other classmates. We have this saying, to be C4L, you have to start with CY1. I always like to say, listen, this is the beginning of your Cub Year journey, and we're going to walk with you through this. CY1 is just the first phase. There's a CY2, 3, and 4. So instead of, sometimes what happens when we have classes or things that feel extra, our tendency is to just moan and be like, oh, why is this, right? But quite frankly, the measure you give is the measure you get. What you put into something is what you're going to get out of this something. So what are you going to put into these 4 years that are going to impact you as an alum, which is to be a Cub for life? So after you kind of give them that, like, first impressions matter, like, we got this type of thing, get into the homework. I think the homework should take the last 5 minutes. Tell them that they can only do this assignment if they have their school MacBook. If they do not have their school MacBook, they will receive a 0, and be very clear with them. The 0 is a placeholder. They have the whole entire course to turn in this assignment by July 21st and with their MacBook to get the points. If they don't, it's going to stay a 0, and they're going to be unprepared for their first year because everyone needs to be enrolled in this mobile device management system. I will be very honest with you, this assignment is always tricky and we always have issues with it. And that's partially because it requires direction reading and it requires that the kids do everything to the letter. I'm going to try to get the tech department to come in and offer support, but at this point, we can't handhold them. We just have to say, okay, follow the directions. If you need additional support, come see me in office hours. And then finally, the last thing you want to say to them is, listen, this is what I expect you to, we said, be prepared, be productive, be respectful. You need to bring to every class your planner, your laptop, and the pen that I just gave you, or a different writing utensil, depending on who you are. Your homework is this MDM assignment only if you have your school MacBook, and when you get it, you need to do it. You need an appropriate headshot photo on your phone, and you're going to say it's going to be important for tomorrow's tech day. And then you need this password. So this is when I would pass out that password information, which is really important. They need this password to be able to get into their account stuff. And you can even say, my encouragement to you is to get in today, to use your password. If you don't know how to do any of this in your planner, there's a login page. It tells you all about how to log into our stuff. Those are the things that I would do to end the day. If you end early, come up with another icebreaker that you can do. What are you most excited about for Loyola? Turn to your partner and share about it. Quite frankly, I don't think you're going to end early. I think you're going to feel like, oop, I'm right up to the bell, which is why I think the timing of this lesson is really important and why rehearsing it's going to help. So that's day 1, video 1. I highly, highly encourage you watch the video for day 2 because it's our tech seminar and it's a lot. So happy travels. I promise that it's going to get easier teaching CY1 as you get into the rhythm. The first couple lessons are very robust for the reason of we just want our students to get excited and we want to make sure they get into their technology sooner rather than later. All right, take care.